Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. How's it going today? How are you? Hope you're doing well. I think I forgot to do something yesterday. So on Sunday night, I found out that yesterday I had an out-of-town overnight that was not anticipated. And I said it on my Sunday local stream, but that was really late in the day. It was short, and not a lot of people were there. So I think I forgot to mention that, but in my brain I had. So yeah, I didn't have a show last night because of that. Sorry about that. It was just, I was like, oh yeah, I mentioned it. But I didn't. I didn't mention it at all, I don't think. Not on my own show, and I didn't make a post about it, which I should have. And, you know, maybe I'll fix that at some point. But anyway, we're here tonight. We're here tonight, and we're here to talk about something that gets kind of tiring to talk about in general, but it's important. It's important. Which I hate that it is. But we're going to talk Donald Trump. And why are we talking Donald Trump? Not because there's an ongoing criminal prosecution or an ongoing lawsuit or anything like that, but because there's constantly new ones. Because Trump has to be punished, and so do his supporters. So does anyone who fought for him. So does anyone who advocated for him. He must go. And this is this weird thing. I mean, it's not that weird. It's not that weird to see one political party persecuting their political opponents. It's just kind of weird in the United States. And there's a lot of reasons that it's going on. The media loves it. They love it because they talk about Trump, and Trump generates news for the media left and right. That's what they need. They need clicks. They need interaction. They need all of that stuff. But it gets kind of tiring to just talk about, oh, Trump's indicted again. It's a political witch hunt, which, I mean, this is all true. But I'm going to add a new angle to it tonight. Because there was a private lawsuit in the state of Pennsylvania that got thrown out on something called presidential immunity. And we're going to talk about what presidential immunity is, why it exists, what the constitutional issue is, what the constitutional questions are, and then if it applies to his indictments, which have not been thrown out due to presidential immunity. But if you remember last week or the week before, I think it was last week, we talked about this concept of unanswered constitutional questions. And these are things where people, especially like law pontificators, will typically go out and they will assert with confidence the constitutionality of an issue. And sometimes there's pretty good basis for it, right? Up until 2 years ago, you had a very strong foundation for saying that abortion was a constitutionally settled issue, that there was an individual right of a woman to an abortion, which conflicted with a state's right in an interest in a future citizen and protecting the health and life of a future citizen. And that when those two came into conflict, there was originally basically a 2-trimester standard where a woman had 2 trimesters that had to be constitutionally guaranteed to the child and the state's right. 2 trimesters that had to be guaranteed to the woman. Overcoming the state's interest in the child. And then in 1992, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that changed a little bit. And they said, well, we're going to do this new standard of viability. And it reduced that 2-trimester standard to around 28 weeks and 26 weeks. And then I think 24 weeks over time is where we got. But you had this strong foundation to say there's this constitutional question. It has been answered and addressed by the Supreme Court, and we know what it is until it changes. But there are a lot of constitutional issues that have never been answered by the Supreme Court for one reason or another. There's some that don't get answered because of something called the political question doctrine. It's a political question that is better solved by the voting populace and the representative government than the judiciary. So Supreme Court will back off and say, nope, you guys figure this shit out. Pretty cool. There's plenary authority. Sometimes the judicial branch says, actually, there's a plenary power here, which means a power held by one party. Maybe the executive, maybe the legislature, maybe the judiciary. And that plenary authority can't be questioned in a courtroom because it's held by the president or the Congress. In this case, plenary, or not in this case, but in some cases, like the plenary power the pardon. The pardon isn't questionable. There is a specific constitutional restriction on the pardon in instances of impeachment. But in all other cases, under federal criminal law, the pardon power exists, and it extends beyond what people's normal concept of the pardon power is. It's not just for people who are convicted of something. It's people who are currently accused. It's people who are being investigated. It's a very strong, broad power. And the judiciary says, it's not really up to us to impede upon that. There's a clear constitutional issue. It's not even vague. So we don't rule on these. The president can pardon whomever they want at whatever stage of the investigation for whatever crime, so long as it's not impeachment. And impeachment isn't a crime. It's a political process, which is a plenary power of the two houses of Congress. House has the sole authority to bring impeachments, and the Senate has the sole authority to try them. Now, there are some rules around those impeachments and how they work out, and maybe those go to the validity of it. That's something we've talked about, that I don't know if Trump's second impeachment trial is constitutionally valid. And no one can say with authority that it is or isn't, because that's one of those things that would have to be resolved by the Supreme Court. What did the founders mean when it said, when impeaching a president, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will sit over the impeachment proceedings? We didn't have John Roberts sit over the impeachment proceedings of Donald Trump. Does that mean the Supreme Court believes that Donald Trump was not the president for the purposes of that impeachment? Does that simply mean that the Supreme Court thought the impeachment trial was moot because he was already removed? Or was that a symbol that the impeachment itself was just not valid? We don't know. We don't have any answers on these because they haven't been asked of the only people who get to answer them. And we've got one now that's only been partially answered, and that is the question of presidential immunity, which has only been answered in the context of a civil suit. Now, the interesting thing is there are everyone who will burn your ears off about how Trump is the first president to be indicted on felony charges, right? But they ignore that there was another president being indicted on felony charges who reached a plea agreement to avoid the indictment, which is something not everybody gets. That's a Democrat favorite, Bill Clinton. Now, there's some different questions at play between what Bill Clinton was doing and what President Trump was doing. And we're going to go through what presidential immunity is currently, what it might mean, what it might not mean. But we're going to leave this with an unanswered question, because I cannot tell you if Trump is actually immune from criminal suit. Even if he ticks all the boxes for presidential immunity that are laid out, I still can't tell you the answer, because it's never been answered by the Supreme Court in regards to a criminal case. Really, because we tend to not indict presidents, sitting or former. And so we don't run into this very often. And this isn't strange in regards to our Constitution. There's lots of stuff that in there that has never been challenged because it's just not going to come up all that often. But now we have it. Now we have it, and now it's being slapped in front of us over and over. So we're going to talk about that. It may take a little bit. I do have the indictment. It's 45 pages. We might skim it. We might read through it. We'll see. I don't know if I want to do a 45-page indictment that's going to say the same shit over and over, but on the other hand, maybe it's important enough to do it. Okay, so there's that. That's going to be a big chunk of the show. And again, I'm not personally a fan of talking about Trump all the time. It gets very tiring. It's a monotone sort of signal from the mainstream media. And I don't want to do that to everybody here. This isn't just a Trump show. However, the Democrats are making this year a Trump show in regards to interesting legal issues and dangerous political questions, in my opinion. Do we indict our political opposition when election years are upcoming and it seems like a naked attempt to interfere with that election process using the power of the Department of Justice? That's what it kind of looks like. And then there's the other interesting question of how far will the government go in prosecuting people for criminal acts that many people out there, myself included, would strongly consider protected First Amendment speech and assembly and redress of government. Because January 6th is a big deal, but now we're moving on to the next punishment stage. We saw how January 6th is handled. Lots of these people were treated extremely poorly and in a unique way in criminal law. Many of them were held for as long or longer without trial than they would have received as punishment for their crimes. Those are dangerous constitutional issues in regards to prosecuting your political opposition for speaking out. And it carries something called a chilling effect by the Supreme Court, which is a very dangerous infringement on speech aimed to quash and quell political demonstration and opposition. There's one party that doesn't seem to have any problem with doing that right now. I think that's a risky gambit. That's an important thing to talk about, and we've been talking about that a little bit. Other people have been talking about it a lot, guys like Robert Gouveia, and he is on top of that stuff. Great content to watch if you're interested in it. Now we're in the next round. The next round isn't as obvious. Like the January 6th, you're like, oh, they went to the Capitol and they caused violence, or whatever you want to say. Like whatever narrative you want to suck down and spit out, I don't care. You at least have a narrative. The next narrative is a step removed. And we're going to be talking about it along with this presidential immunity thing, not because they have presidential immunity. These are other people than Donald Trump, but because it goes hand in hand with the overall motif, and strategy of the Biden administration and really the system's prosecution of its enemies. And this is the bringing of criminal charges to people who merely questioned the integrity of the 2020 election, who tried to do it with data, who tried to do it with the facts available, many times who asked for additional facts to try and verify this stuff, were denied those facts and are now being prosecuted as knowingly lying about the results of the 2020 election, knowingly spread a false narrative with the intent to defraud the U.S. government, the people of the United States, the election process, as if you can defraud a process in general. Like a process isn't something that can be fooled. It's not an entity. But they're being criminally charged now for raising questions, for vigorously advocating for access to data that they were denied, and for asserting that they weren't comfortable or confident in the outcome of an election. Now, whatever you think about the 2020 election, the legitimacy of it is irrelevant here, because the First Amendment gives you, most importantly, the right to be incorrect. And that has been dangerously challenged by the overzealous prosecutors across the nation, riding a wave of political will that they believe exists and tapping into this idea that they can snuff out the next level of opposition. Now, they will frame it, of course, as snuffing out people trying to undermine and defraud the populace and their confidence in the election process. But that's only if that's actually their goal and not a narrative. If you know anything about prosecutors, prosecutors will fabricate motive. They will create an explanation that might fit the facts. And then they'll work towards that explanation with the facts that they have, with the tools at their disposal, with the exclusion of evidence that they find troubling to that. So do these people actually have an intent to undermine, to steal the election? Because that's what prosecutors are saying. That the purposes of all of the questioning of the 2020 election was to actually steal it. And they're further asserting a criminal intent behind it. Remember, criminal law, you can't just incidentally be prosecuted for facts. In criminal law, you have to possess a criminal mindset, a mens rea, an intention to do wrong, a depraved mind of some sort. Something that says, I'm going to do the thing that is not right for gain. And that seems to be lacking here, because even if you believe that the election was perfectly legitimate, I'm not seeing evidence that the people in question didn't believe that it was, or did believe that it was legitimate and chose to lie. I'm not seeing that. And I don't see everything, so there could be evidence of it somewhere. But what they're using against Donald Trump to create that criminal intent is informative of probably how they're doing it with other people. And it's really, really critical to show just how infringing this is on our right to speak, our right to protest, and our right to be incorrect. So we're going to hit all of that in this first subject. Then next, we've got a very, very heavy situation. The gravity of it is will draw everyone in. It is the fattest lawsuit ever created. Lizzo's backup dancers are suing Lizzo and her management company. So a whole lot of fats are suing each other while they should be accepting their fat pride or whatever, right? Like that's what's going on. And the allegations are that Lizzo and her management company do not uphold the standards. And how could you uphold anything involving Lizzo? I mean, titanium reinforcement, maybe. They're not upholding the standards and the persona that Lizzo puts on in the future, so or in public. So I'm hoping we get some juice out of that squeeze, but I have a feeling it's just going to be oil. So we're going to take a look at that lawsuit as well, because that's just great. That's just fantastic. I really hope their management is fat shaming these cows, like herding them into pens and stuff, giving them troughs of food and being like, eat up, fatzos, you fat fucking bitches. Like, God, wouldn't it? I'd just be perfect. But we'll see. We'll see what that is. I haven't read through the suit yet. I just saw that it exists. So we're going to check that out. And then maybe some other stuff. And I do have a brief intro issue to hit right after I hit these super chats. And then we'll get right into the president thing. The plan this week is to have a show Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There is a slight possibility that I will not be having a show on Friday, but I believe I will. The issue is I'm about to go on a long trip. I will be streaming on this trip, but I don't know where all of the schedule impacts will be. I'm trying to minimize them as much as possible, but there will be schedule impacts. I'm going to Anime Matsuri. I will try to do some live streams from the convention. I would have done that last year, except for being banned. But I'm not banned currently. I mean, I guess that'll change today. Who knows? But Anime Matsuri, I will be hopefully streaming from the convention, but the schedule may be different than normal because a lot of the nights where I normally am streaming, I'm meeting people in person and hanging out and, just engaging in fellowship and camaraderie. So there will have an impact there. And my trip is not just to Matsuri. We've got a family vacation around it. I'm not going to be home for quite some time, and there will be some bouncing around that I'm doing, but I will be trying to stream at every possible instance, even though I'll be on that vacation, because a lot of the nights I will still have the kind of normal time zone ability to stream. But I will try and keep people apprised of when I am not streaming, so no one's kind of waiting around in anticipation for a stream. And I'll try and keep that schedule updated as I know it. But the plan is to stream every day this week through Friday. But there is a possibility if we leave early or something that I wouldn't be streaming Friday. But that's not in the cards currently. Okay. All right. So let's hit the super chats. Oh, and I may have a very cool guest for one final direct examination before my trip this week, but I have to see if I can arrange it. All right. Christine Hansopoulos says, "Hi, Nick. Can't wait to see you and Lady Rackets at Anime Matsuri. My son and I hope we'll get to do a shot with you this time. You got me hooked on Tito's, and shots in Texas are twice as big as in New York City." Well, you know what they say. Everything is bigger in Texas, of course. Cedar Rose says, "Boo, you're fired." True. Frederick Little, "Hi, Nick. Hope you and the family are well. Also, rest in peace to Paul Reubens, a.k.a. Pee-wee Herman." Rest in peace to Paul Reubens. Frederick, no, Drex is not going with me to Matsuri, and I don't think he's coming down to Matsuri either. But I don't know. Last I checked, he was not planning on it, but I haven't talked to him about it in a couple weeks, so I'm not sure. But I will be there. And Lady Rackets will be there with me. There's 7 official guests: me, Camelot, Cecil, Chrissy Mayer, Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic, and Legal Mindset will be official guests of the convention. We will have tables there at the show. You can come visit us. Other people who will be there: Legal Vices, Aussie Overlord. Who else? There's a bunch. My brain is freezing out on it. I don't know if Attorney Tom's going to show up. He's hard to see though, so even if he's there, you might overlook him. But there will be some other creators. I think Uncivil Law may be going as well. But yes, Vic Mignogna will be there. He's a guest of the convention. He's not in the YouTube area. I'm talking about the YouTube area. But yeah, it'll be a great show. Lots of fun. There'll be panels and stuff like that. Plus, you get to just come meet people like us if you think that's cool. I mean, I don't know. And I'll be around to hang out with a little bit around the outside of the convention times as well. So it's a lot of fun. Look, if you come to my table and stuff, I know a lot of people do. I don't charge for signatures or pictures or anything like that. I just like to meet people, say hi. So if you are there, come to my table. You don't have to worry about paying or buying anything. I might have some merch there that would be optional, but just coming up, saying hi, snapping a picture, getting something signed. That's, I don't charge for stuff like that. Other people can, it's fine, but I don't. Okay. And yes, Paul Reubens, aka Pee-wee Herman, is now dead. So there's that. He has kind of a troubled history. Paul Reubens was first arrested for public exposure for masturbating in an adult theater. Which, I mean, is weird. But adult theaters are kind of weird anyway. I feel like a lot of jerking off probably happens there. But he got arrested for it, charged, and prosecuted for that. He was later charged with possession of child pornography. He and his lawyers, of course, denied that that's what he was actually in possession of. No one's ever actually verified the alleged collection. And he pled to a lesser charge that didn't include child pornography, but did include obscenity, a misdemeanor obscenity possession charge. Now, he had always said he possessed a collection of kitsch. Kitsch is like absurd art. And we don't know what that means. That could mean a lot. And the VHS tapes, there are 2 tapes that he was were accused of having child pornography on them. One of them, he said, was Rob Lowe's sex tape. And presumably Rob Lowe was an adult at the time the sex tape was made, but I don't know. I don't know what Pee-wee's into or what Rob Lowe was filming at the time. But, and then I don't remember what the other tape was, but there's always this specter, of course, around Paul Reubens after that. And, he was a child show host who were always sus. And so you never really knew how to feel about him. Like, was this guy a pedophile? I don't know. What I do know is that he did play in several roles, and he was actually quite a talented actor. If you watch Blow, fantastic movie. He's very good in it. And then another movie that he was absolutely great in a completely different way is Mystery Men, as the spleen. Mystery Men is a very below radar dark comedy that I fucking love. So great movies to check out. R.I.P. to Paul Reubens, unless he was a kid toucher, and then rest in not peace, but in the fires of hell. I just don't know which one it was. Frederick Little has gifted some memberships to the channel. Thank you so much, Frederick. And he also says, glad to be a member, Nick, for 33 months. Can't believe it's been almost 3 years. Much love to you in the show. God bless. Keep up the great content. Hey, thank you. Much appreciated. Mr. House says, hey, Rackets, yesterday was my 40th birthday, and your show is my favorite daily listen. Can I get a birthday toast from the Law Pope? Love the show and the renewed focus. Keep it up. Of course. Of course you can. I cracked open the Joseph Magnus cigar blend today. All right. So, whoa, that was loud, probably. Sorry if that was loud. All right. Cheers to Mr. House. Happy 40th birthday. I hope your 40th year is as enjoyable as mine was. As you move into your 40s, I hope that you find a peace and a calm and a self-assuredness that will allow you to enjoy life without as many apologies as you have to make in your 20s and 30s. May the respect that you didn't earn, but you happened to get by just living, go before you and clear paths and open doors that had remained closed prior to the arbitrary changing of age. Cheers to you. Enjoy it, my friend. It's pretty fucking cool getting old. All right. Okay. We got one more here over on locals, and then we'll hit these. We'll get into these topics. Jason Angelfire says, Nick, Monday morning, our baby decided he wanted to come into the world 3 weeks early. Baby and mom are good. Can I get a shout out as a new dad for doing all the hard work? Wife's here listening with me. Look, Jason Angelfire, all dads know this secret. Mom never does anything. In fact, barely even useful to babies' lives. They whine all the time about the pain. Oh God, it was so hard carrying this baby around. It was uncomfortable, and I had to spit it out. It took 9 months, and we're like, what? We have to carry you around for like the entire marriage. We don't get to force you out of a hole and be done with you. We just have to stick around. Here you're bitching the whole time. To you, buddy. We know who's doing the real work. And now, of course, that you can take your estrogen and be milked, what does she even need to do? Go get it, man. Look, have fun. I know your sleep schedule is about to be completely boned, but it's worth it, buddy. Have a good one. All right. Something's been bothering me, and I got to get it off my chest. I got to do it. I'm very sorry to anyone that this may offend. Warren G is not a regulator. He's a fucking bitch. And Nate Dogg is the true G. I'm tired of this shit. Warren G is a poser in regulators. He's walking in there acting all hard. You better not step up to me and all this shit. The opening intro to regulators, like, you better be handy with the steel. But let's talk about this. Let's fucking talk about this. Because listen to this story. What happens? We got two gentlemen. We got two gentlemen on the same mission. They got to hit that tail. That's what they're both out to do. Warren G in his car, Nate Dogg in his. They're going to meet up, but they're looking for them honeys. And they're out there all night going. Nate Dogg stays true to mission. He stays true to mission. He finds the honeys. They're checking him out so hard that they're woman driving right into the curb and into a building, and they crash. And then they're stranded and they're busted. But he's also on a mission for Warren G. And something comes up. Now, let's rewind and find out how Warren G's night's going. Does he stay true to the mission? Is he out scoping the honeys? No. Warren G stops his car to hang out with a pack of men. Oh, they're rolling dice. So not only is he gay, not only is he sinning in that way, this sinner is engaging in the cardinal sin of gambling, where he's like, oh, I'm going to roll dice. And God decides to punish Warren G. So what happens? He gets jumped. He gets punked. They steal his rings. They steal his Rolex. This motherfucker is about to get iced in his own town. And what's his response? Is he going to pull out the steel and lay down the law, regulate those motherfuckers right out of existence like a government program? No. If I had wings, I would fly away. This pussy is nobody. I'm tired of Warren G getting all the credit and regulators. He doesn't deserve any of it. What happens next? Oh, back to Nate Dogg, who witnesses his man Warren G, who he's on a tail quest with, getting punked. So what does he do? I better grab my gat out of the glove box, 16 in the clip and 1 in the hole, right? Gonna make some bodies go cold. And he lays down, suppressing fire, dropping a couple of these dudes, chasing the rest off, and goes and rescues Warren G. Warren G is like, oh, I was about to die. They stole all my stuff. I must be cool. And Nate Dogg's like, I got you, homie. Get in your car. Follow me. I remember where the women at. And Nate Dogg goes back to the women who are still stranded because they haven't fixed anything. Because can they even fix anything? I don't know. But Nate Dogg knows as a man that the women will still be standing around the car going, and they are. Of course they are. So he goes up and he has the number one line of the song. He's like, one of the honeys is looking real fine. He says, ooh, I like your size. Great. Anyway, he picks up the women, gives a courtesy couple to Warren G, and then he's like, we got to hit the East Side Motel. Warren G does nothing regulatable in this entire video or song or story, and it's his story. He's a self-insert into someone else's toughness. And I just had to get that off my fucking chest. I just have to get it up. Warren G does not deserve to be in regulators, even though he sings it. There we go. Warren G's a bitch. Sorry, that's been eating me up. That's been eating me up. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. All right. Oh my God. Okay. Let's get back. Let's get into this subject. Let's get into this actual subject of Donald Trump and why he's taller than Attorney Tom, which is true. Them's fighting words. Well, If them's fighting words, you can have Warren G on your team and I'll take Nate Dogg. I mean, they're both corpses, so, you know, I guess see how that works out. All right. Can I pull this fucking thing up? Oh my God. I don't want the annotated version of the indictment. I just want the full fucking indictment. Hold on. Okay, whatever. We'll just do it here. This has CNN's annotations on it. I'm going to ignore their annotations. All right. So if you're not aware, Donald Trump was indicted today for a third criminal indictment. A third criminal indictment. This one is in relation to his quote unquote election interference. The violations alleged are 1, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Count 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Count 3, obstruction of and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And count 4, conspiracy against rights. So all of this is related to Donald Trump's actions surrounding the 2020 election. And his allegation that the 2020 election was stolen or interfered with in some way. Now, YouTube, for the purposes of this entire YouTube, you fags, I am going to state right now that this commentator is commentating on a specific legal issue involving allegations against a former president for his interpretation of the 2020 presidential election, potential election interference, and other things of that nature. I am not endorsing any particular element of any of the ensuing statements. I am talking specifically and strictly about the legal issues of bringing charges against a sitting president, or actually against a former president, for actions while he was sitting, for the purpose of constitutionally analyzing the validity of the charges. I don't give a shit what anyone thinks about Trump and election interference or Dominion and election interference. I don't give a shit. So YouTube, if your third world, non-English speaking retards decide to strike me for advocating something about the 2020 election, please translate into whatever Punjabi language they're speaking. Fist yourself, you fucking morons. I'm not advocating shit. I'm talking about a legal principle. And the fact that I have to give this stupid spiel to disclaim something that should be obvious and to tell YouTube, because I'm not telling you guys, I'm telling YouTube and their third-party contractors very specifically that I'm not making any claim at all. I don't care. It's irrelevant to me what the truth is. The only thing at issue for the purposes of this video in which I am talking about it is, can they even bring charges? And we're going to do an analysis around that. Now, there may be some incidental mention of something like election fraud or voter interference or Trump saying that votes were miscounted. Again, that's not me. That is the newsworthy story. How do I know it's newsworthy? Oh, I don't know. Every fucking outlet on the planet can't stop talking about it, and prosecutors around the country are masturbating into their own mouths about how they can fucking figure out who they can prosecute so they can elevate their own position. So while you're translating fist yourself into Punjabi, just go ahead and send it into faggy liberal Silicon Valley speak of fist yourself, but don't enjoy it this time. For you guys, fuck you, YouTube. I hate you. I hope you die. Hey, what's up, Rumble? How you doing? How you doing? There we go. Okay. So, with that, let's get this indictment pulled up. All right. So here it is. On the right side, we're going to have CNN's notes. These are annotations by someone with an opinion. I don't know who wrote them. Zachary B. Wolf and Kurt Merrill. Who the fuck are these people? Let's just see if we should even care. Zachary E. Wolf. This is senior writer, CNN Politics. Zach Wolf writes the... Oh my God. Can it not be a walking stereotype of embarrassment? Can it not be this? Can this not be the person that is writing that? Look at the fucking face. They're like, hey, Zach, we're going to take a picture. We're going to put it on our webpage to represent you when anybody looks you up. What do you want it to be? That's what you choose? That's the one? That's your shot? Let's read his full bio. Who is this? Frequent guest on CNN Early Start. Previously served as digital director of CNN Politics, managing editor of CNN Politics. Joined CNN July 2013 as senior planning editor. Before coming to CNN, Wolf was senior political editor and deputy political editor of ABC. Also worked as an assignment editor in ABC's Washington bureau and as a freelance producer in California, where he is from, and one day hopes to return. He graduated from UC Berkeley. Okay. So he's going to write on a complex constitutional issue. All right. And who's Kurt Merrill? Just a second. Two R's? Yeah. Kurt Merrill. CNN? Do I have to put that in? Is he just not around? They don't have much about him. Hold on, let me see here. CNN doesn't even have a profile on Kurt Merrill. I don't know who this is. He's got, some bylines, contributing bylines. I don't know. I would expect if I were annotating a criminal indictment, I would expect you'd have some criminal lawyer, even if it's a prosecutor, even if it's someone completely opposed to Donald Trump. I would expect you'd have, well, it's CNN, so they're all completely opposed to Donald Trump. Like, that's not new. But I would expect some lawyer, prosecutor, criminal defense attorney to write this. It's CNN. You can hire a consultant, hire a professor. Nothing. No. Okay, good. So we know we can just go ahead and fucking ignore every annotation because these people are irrelevant to the legal questions at hand. All right, so here we go. Oh, what's up? Joe, Good Logic's viewers have joined stream. Thank you so much. Welcome to the stream. If you're here for discussion of Trump, welcome. If you're here for discussion of Warren G versus Nate Dogg, you need to go ahead and scroll back about 15 minutes. All right, here we go. So this is an indictment from a grand jury. The defendant, Donald J. Trump, was the 45th president of the United States and candidate for re-election in 2020. The defendant lost the 2020 presidential election. Despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power. Now, this is a critical sort of thing that needs to be addressed. All right? There is a perspective here based on your presumptions about Donald Trump, the election process, parties, etc. Some people will say He was determined to remain in power with sort of a negative connotation about what that means. Other people will say he was determined to find find the truth of what he believed was a mysterious circumstance. What is the actual answer there? I can't tell you. I don't think Donald Trump, and that's the person who's important in this, I do not think Donald Trump thinks he lost the election. I don't think he does. And remember, that's the person that matters because that's the criminal charge. Donald Trump has to know what he's saying isn't true for this stuff to stick. And that's just if we're going through the charges, but there's wrinkles to this. So let's keep going. So for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election that he had actually won. These claims were false and the defendant knew that they were false, but the defendant repeated and widely disseminated them anyway to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. Strong words. But let's analyze one thing here. So for more than 2 months following the November 3rd, so we've got December 3rd, January 3rd, and they're going to go through Inauguration Day, January 21st. But we can infer from this statement, and this is critical to what we're talking about with presidential immunity. We can infer from this statement that basically all of the activity that they're concerned, oh, I got rid of the annotations, get wrecked, losers. All of the activity we're talking about is while Donald Trump is a sitting president. And that is going to be critical to, again, the discussion of presidential immunity and if it applies. The defendant had a right like every American. Now, this is a nod to the First Amendment, okay? This is a nod because they know that this is a big fucking problem. Like every American, to speak publicly about the election and to claim falsely there had been outcome determinative fraud during the election and that he had won. Now, just as a pause here, do you guys believe that every American has a right to speak publicly about the election and claim that there was outcome determinative fraud? Does anybody believe that? We've got criminal charges on a president and on several members of his staff now for this exact thing. Does anybody believe that every American had a right to do this? Now, I believe we should have the right to do this. I believe that in principle, we have a right to do this, but I don't think the practical aspect of this rings true. And not only are there criminal charges being filed against people who went forth with this, lawyers have been disbarred over it. And we know that the government colluded with social media companies to prevent this very exercise of their right, which if social media companies were just doing it independently, like, oh, of course they were, that might be okay under current law. But once the government asks a company to do something that would be in the capacity of a government actor, like, I don't know, censoring an unpopular political take in opposition to an incoming and ongoing regime, now we have different questions about whether they can do that and whether a right was infringed by that behavior. And the scary thing is, I don't know if we'll ever get an answer on whether or not Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, even though we've confirmed that FBI agents have actively asked these platforms to remove certain contents of a political nature in a bald, naked, small penis attempt to censor them, if that's a violation of the First Amendment. But on principle, it sure fucking is. It sure fucking is. The fact that these companies colluded with them, I don't care if you're threatened with whatever stupid sanction or punishment that they threaten you, take them to fucking court. Take them to court. You have more money than Jesus. Take them to court with the threats and statements record them, write them down, and put them on fucking blast. Because this is an infringement of constitutional rights. And you acted as fucking patsies for a corrupt and violative government and one of the most disgusting infringements of First Amendment right in recent history. Why is it so disgusting? Because it literally silenced your political opposition at one of the most crucial times in America and treated everybody who just asked a question as a criminal, as a lunatic, as an insane conspiracy theorist. And the funny thing is, these same motherfuckers were all on board and have still been pushing the theory that the election was interfered with in 2016, even though they assert that that is an impossibility. Official narrative of every major media company, of every social media company, and of every fucking government shill out there. Couldn't have happened in 2020, but it definitely did in 2016. We just can't prove it. The nakedness of the political persecution of wrong thinkers around the 2020 election should disgust and terrify even the most ardent Biden supporter who fully believes he won every vote legitimately. Because when Republicans take over at some point, you'll beg for the same data they asked for. All right. He was also entitled to formally challenge the results of the election through lawful and appropriate means. Nope. Such as by seeking recounts or audits of the popular vote in states. Nope. Actually, he was denied recounts and audits of popular votes in several states, specifically swing states, and specifically states that they alleged that they had disagreeing data than the state had, and asked very specifically. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, one of those states is trying to further charge Donald Trump with yet another criminal indictment, this time under state law, for merely asking for the data to support or discredit their data, which says that he had more votes. So no, he wasn't entitled to do that. And every court that looked at it refused to entertain the case, saying that not only did nobody have standing, but specifically that Donald Trump didn't have standing to question this vote at all. There was no legal process following the election that was allowed to proceed to any sort of evidentiary issue. And this constant reminder of, well, they had the right to bring it to court. No one actually knows how to bring this to court. And the evidence that no one knows how to bring it to court is because no one fucking was able to. No one was able to. Which lawsuit got to court? Which lawsuit got heard? Pre-trial dismissals, latches within a month. A month. Latches, by the way, is a principle of law that says that this thing is too old for a court to rectify. Within a month, latches. Nope, sorry. We're not going to hear it. No standing. Time barred. Did he have the right? Maybe, and here's the thing. Maybe he didn't. Maybe there isn't a right. Maybe this is entirely a non-challengeable political question. That's a scary thing to consider, by the way, that could be an answer, but we don't have a definitive statement that it is. But right now, I don't think anybody who followed those lawsuits believes that there was a feasible way to challenge it. Because, look, there were a bunch of junk lawsuits. Bunch of them. Many of the election lawsuits were absolutely fucking garbage. Sidney Powell filed garbage lawsuits. Lynn Wood filed garbage lawsuits. Those two hoodwinked America, particularly the American conservative class, and they fucking filed trash over and over and over again. But that being said, in there were some actual gems with real legal questions, very serious implications. No matter if they determine the outcome of the election or not, the questions asked were legitimate and need to be answered. But the courts cowered away from all of it. All of it. So let's not just assert that they had a right to do that. Both of those instances, he clearly did not have the right to do that. And no one to this day can definitively tell you how Trump could have challenged this election and gotten a hearing. No one on earth, especially not this prosecutor. No one can say, had Trump done this, he could have legally challenged the election. No one can say how. There isn't a process for any of this. It has to be made up on the fly. And if courts won't take it up as a novel issue, then you're fucked. Then you're fucked. No one can tell them. Everybody can come up with different ideas. Oh, well, based on what they said here, maybe it should have been done at this time or this way or whatever. But we don't know that those would have worked. We only know that the ways that were tried didn't. All right, here we go. Of the popular vote in states are filing lawsuits challenging ballots and procedures. Indeed, in many cases, the defendant did pursue these methods of contesting the election results. His efforts to change the outcome in any state through recounts, audits, or legal challenges were uniformly unsuccessful. And again, most of them were dismissed out of hand. Or if it was a recount, it was literally a count of the count. When he asked for audits, he didn't get audits. We saw this in Georgia. I believe we saw it in Arizona as well. I think we saw it in Las Vegas or in Nevada. Shortly after Election Day, the defendant also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. In so doing, the defendant perpetrated 3 criminal conspiracies. I'm not sure what these unlawful means are, but let's see. A conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair and obstruct and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 371. Now, where did Trump interfere in any way with the constitutional process for counting the electoral votes for inauguration? Because here's what you got. You got a popular vote, which, by the way, popular votes, this is kind of an important distinction to me. The popular votes occur at the state level under the state's rules. You cannot interfere with a federal election at the state popular vote level, in my humble opinion, nor at the choosing of electors level. That's not a federal offense because states have the ability to choose their electors in the manner that they deem is proper under their constitution. In theory, state legislatures can just pick electors and choose who they vote for. That's how it was done at the beginning. In theory, that's how it could be done today. There's no individual right to a popular vote of the presidential electors. But that being said, once we get past that process, first of all, I don't see how Trump interfered in any of those either. But once we get past that process, how did he interfere with the casting of the votes by electors, the counting of the votes by Mike Pence on January 6th, or the inauguration of Joe Biden, which all happened on time? And by the way, we have had in the past significant delays in the counting of electoral votes by presidential candidates who have challenged the legitimacy of the vote count. They were not charged with a conspiracy to defraud. And they actually did obstruct the process because it took months before that was resolved. So tell me again, where's the actual obstruction of the process? I don't see it. I'm having trouble here. Next, a conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6th congressional proceeding at which the collected results of the presidential election are counted and certified in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1512K. Now, here we have another problem. There is not evidence that Trump himself intended to incite anyone into the actions that occurred on January 6th. They had every opportunity to show this at the impeachment And they failed. They failed to do so. This brings along another very, very specific problem. If what they've got is Trump's White House address on January 6th, which is what they had at the impeachment, as evidence that he obstructed this, this is a speech from the president on a matter of grave public concern, which is the election and the integrity of the process. Something a sitting president or presidential candidate would have every First Amendment right to question, to challenge, to call out, even if they're wrong. But the president actually has a special ability here because this is definitely within the scope of what his duties are as president when he's making an official address to the United States people. You have the other problem of it's not fucking true. It's practically impossible. Trump didn't even say anything that would lead to this action, and they were already entering the Capitol at the time his speech was ending, miles away. Kind of hard to argue that his speech was the trigger. Maybe Ray Epps, I don't know. A conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted in violation of 18 U.S.C. 241. And this is just fucking rich, right? And this is how you can tell you've got a state agent acting in full capacity here, because this is the gaslighting of the state prosecuting the people. This is the way they do it. Trump and everybody else, their arguments to the court were that voters' rights to vote and be counted were being violated by a process that was corrupt and discounted and ignored validly cast votes in favor of invalid votes or overcounted or double counted votes or whatever their claim was. The court said there's no standing to bring this claim because every voter is similarly impacted. So there's no individual standing to go ahead and say that your vote didn't count because neither did your neighbors in theory, which is a baffling way to approach it, but that's standing for you. So not only do they charge him with this, but it is such a gaslight because people were denied the specific relief that they asked for in saying, I was damaged in this way. And the court said, you can't get relief for this. But now they're going to punish Trump for the thing that they accuse the other side of doing. That is magnifique politique is indicative of full corruption. And I fucking hate it. With that, I have to talk about something. I have to talk about something. There is a solution. There's a solution for government agents. And that is the tack right mini chainsaw. Yeah. Yeah, what's the solution? For government agents, I don't know. A mini chainsaw is the solution. Why? Oh, wait a minute. I know how this looks. Oh, whoa. I got to stop this. People are thinking that I'm suggesting that someone would use a mini chainsaw on like a politician or a state agent. Never. Oh my God. That's horrifying. Jesus, what is wrong with you people? No, obviously the solution is to gift them a mini chainsaw so they're too preoccupied around the house, doing small chores, pruning small branches, working on small-scale woodworking projects with their kids that they probably smuggled in from an Eastern European country for illicit purposes. That's what they're doing. I would never suggest violence. What is wrong with you people? Dear God, this is about giving them the gift of productivity because, as we all know, idle hands are the devil's playground, right? Idle hands are dangerous because they go, I don't have any woodworking to do. I guess I better persecute my political opposition. And that is what we are trying to avoid. The overt prosecution, and persecution of political opposition through productive and constructive processes of excellent hand tools to help people find and deal with projects around the house. And you can get yours to send to a politician at tackrightnose.com. That's how you can get your mini chainsaw today. Now, look, if you don't know a politician or whatever, which is good, that's probably a good thing. Just send one to your folks, send one to anybody in your life who has these projects. If you're a homeowner, first of all, the root word of that is homo, you gay. And the second part of that is owner. That means that you own a giant, never-ending project. That's what home ownership is in America, a giant, never-ending project. And the Tack-Right Mini Chainsaw is a small, convenient way to deal with some of the issues that arise from having, like a yard. If you just have a yard, you've seen a tree in your life, this thing helps out. So go check it out. Thank you very much to Tack-Right Mini Chainsaws for sponsoring this show. tackrightnose.com. With that, we're going to read the YouTube Super Chats, and we will pop over to Rumble. And then we'll continue this fucking shit show in regards to the government and its political oppositions. Okay, Matthew Self says, can we get a sponsor to prune the larger branches that are the government? Maybe Palmetto Arms will sponsor you for that. Woo! Very, very dangerous talk. Be very careful. Be very careful. Okay. Whoa, shit. Christine Hanzopoulos says, I haven't been able to listen to your show in a bit, and I forgot how hysterical you are. Here's another gift for making me forget about the everyday crap in life and laugh a little. Hey, thank you, Christine. Tyrannidus says, per your comment on needing a criminal mind and consciously doing something wrong, could an argument even be made that Trump and others knew it was not stolen, but thought it was the right thing to do to protect the nation from a corrupt person? Maybe. Okay, from a First Amendment standpoint, yeah, of course you can do that. You actually have a First Amendment right to lie. Makes people very uncomfortable. You have a First Amendment right to lie. I don't recommend it. Now, where that lie becomes a problem is when that lie infringes on the rights or property of another person, right? Defamation, interfering with business relationships through falsity, false light, trying to ruin reputations, ruin relationships, both personal and business. And then you've got fraud, like trying to extract something through lying to someone. But just lying about something is fine. Like the people who say that the earth is round, obviously liars. And there's no harm in it other than they're perpetuating the global NASA globular conspiracy or whatever. But like, we find that to be harmless, and us flat earthers know the truth. So it's okay. But no, there's no particular duty you have to tell the truth to anyone. You cannot do so for the purposes of causing harm or falsely inducing a benefit to yourself. That's where it comes in. Now, the government has created laws about defrauding the government in some way. And of course, you can think of ways to defraud the government, right? Like you lie about something to generate a welfare check or something like that. You're inducing a benefit that it does not belong to you by falsely representing facts to get around legal requirements. But this one's weird because, again, it's lying to obstruct a government proceeding. Now, there are ways to lie to obstruct a government proceeding. If you call Congress while they're in session and you call in a bomb threat, well, you have done a lie for the purposes of obstructing a proceeding, right? Like you're trying to stop Congress from voting on something, you call in a bomb threat, or you call up a bunch of congressmen and say their cars are being towed, or you represent yourself as the FBI and say they're all being invested for child porn. Now, the important thing is like you don't actually investigate them for child porn. But when you call up all the members of Congress and you say, hey, this is the FBI, we're going to investigate you for child porn. What you'll find is that Congress will probably shut down really fast and everybody will get in their Mercedes and BMWs on Capitol Hill and they'll all shoot home really quickly and bleach bit their servers. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing that would happen. I mean, I would never impugn the good, solid, moral, and ethical foundations of our congressmen. I mean, they're all such wonderful actors, and they would never engage in illegal and unlawful activity, acting as arbiters of the law and governors over all of us peons who, engage routinely in hedonistic excess to the point of openly and nakedly violating laws that would have everyone else behind bars, but knowing that they would never be prosecuted for it. So like if you just called up Congress and said, yeah, all of you are under investigation for possession of child porn, you would obviously obstruct a congressional hearing because they'd all disappear and be like, fuck, how'd they find the stash? Call up, sweetheart, I need you to delete everything. And they'd say, what? I don't know how to delete things, right? Because they're children. That was the joke. That is a joke. I don't like Congress. Huh. I might have to process this at some point. Don't like Congress. Anyway, so yeah. But you can understand why there'd be certain laws around this. This one seems difficult. This one seems difficult for me. But yeah, under the current law, if they know it's false, there's an issue there. Now, whether that law is constitutional under First Amendment grounds or applicable in this sense is a different question, but that would be a violation of the face of the law. Mercenary Grip says, my daughter, Heather Iris, paid you $1 for a toast to me last week. It was an amazing toast that I'm sure you don't remember because you do a lot of toasts and also because you were shit-faced. Anyway, thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Mercenary Grip. My pleasure. All right, Almond John 1 says, you're doing a Friday show this week, biatch? Yes, that is the plan. That is the plan. Chris Chan, do you think this indictment will lead to the cases, to the Supreme Court because of the First Amendment involvement? Yes, and the question of presidential immunity, which is why there is a silver lining to these cases, because we may get an answer to a very rare constitutional question. Rael says, if knowingly spreading lies on elections is punishable, then if the side they think is lying is actually correct, they can't complain when they are punished. Correct. And John, thank you. Dermy Wormy, just a few more days and I will get you to say back taco at AM at Anime Matsuri. Back taco. Get me to say back taco? Okay. Mostly Gluten says, Almond John 1, this money is for you. C. John says it has 45 pages for the 45th president. Matthew Self, we still talking about Trump and not the fact that Hayden Aussie is allegedly flying to the U.S. and didn't see or hit one bird. I call BS. We know he's not flying to the U.S. because Australia is fake. Crusader Joe, sup Nick? Enjoying your content lately. Had a baby boy. Keep on keeping on. God bless you and yours. From my mouth to God's ears, bless you and your child. Please take care of that little one. Raise them right. We don't have enough people doing it. And not that everyone needs to, but those that choose to, be commended for it, be encouraged in it. It is a hard journey and it's worth every second of frustration that you will have and every second of sleep that you will never get back. Chrissy Harris, welcome to Paralegal. Kurt 2, welcome to Lawyer. Pony Up, didn't Nixon have the uncertified electors from Hawaii counted for JFK? Why is it that people forget Democrats set these precedents before? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, but I'll take your word for it. Matthew Self says, your answer is under oath due to the financial exchange. I understand Rumble rants go into your contract agreement until met. Obviously, YouTube super chats don't do that. So chatting on YouTube is better money-wise for you. Look, I like the interaction, but you do what you think is best, is how I'll word that. He also says, oh, wait, he sent that twice. Well, if you sent it twice, technically you're correct. Technically you're correct on that. But I don't want to encourage anybody to give any money to any particular platform at all. So, Nuclear Winter Gamer says, I don't own any homes. Well, then your Tack Right mini chainsaw would just be for the homeless. It's a joke. That's a joke. Mostly gluten. Is the mini chainsaw the father of the chainsaw sword? Yes. Just asking as a future follower of the chaos god Malice. Yes. Yep. Tara Rayner, is the objection to electoral votes pure theater without remedy, or is there an actual remedy? The Electoral Act, I'm assuming, had a point. We don't know. We don't actually know the answer to that. I mean, maybe, but so again, there are a bunch of laws that the constitutional questions around them are very complex. There was an opportunity here getting into these election lawsuits again. There's a real opportunity for the Supreme Court to kind of weigh in on this issue because Pennsylvania in particular passed a law around absentee ballots. Actually, they passed a constitutional amendment for absentee ballots in Pennsylvania, but they didn't follow the full process for constitutional amendments. If I remember right, they have to pass the amendment in their Congress by the required votes, and then the amendment has to be approved in 2 subsequent ballot measures by the voting populace. And the amendment was only approved by 1 ballot measure, and the second one hadn't occurred. So when Pennsylvania followed their rules, so to speak, on the absentee ballot question, they followed the new constitutional amendment, even though it wasn't fully a part of their constitution yet. It hadn't been legally passed. And when it went up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they basically said, fuck it, we don't care. And then that question was posed to the United States Supreme Court. And it was a question the U.S. Supreme Court should have answered, in my humble opinion, because we have a state violating its state constitution in a way that would definitely have a tangible impact on the presidential election. And there's no question that the validity of the absentee ballot count in Pennsylvania would have an impact on the 2020 election. What the impact would be, what the scale of it is, of course, there is a question because some of the ballots issued and then collected under that legal process were not lawful under the Constitution of Pennsylvania. But the Pennsylvania Supreme Court says they were. They openly negate the requirement for amending the Constitution in favor of this rule. So, for the Supreme Court of the United States, they should have determined whether Pennsylvania gets to make their own rules through their judiciary in violation of their Constitution, or if their Constitution must be upheld in the interest of upholding a federal government election process. Because think about how this works. If every state next election cycle decides to hold a popular vote and they all have laws, every state has a law about how the popular vote count in the state will determine the electors, right? So let's say every state has their popular vote and every state decides after the popular vote is counted to just choose their own electors by the state Congress rather than following their existing law. And then every state Supreme Court agrees with that decision and says, perfectly fine. Is that a valid election? The answer is maybe. Maybe. Because the states determine the manner in which they choose electors under the Constitution, the question is not, can the states choose the electors? Of course they can. The question is, once the states establish a legal process for doing so, must they adhere to it? And that's a separate issue because the state setting rules for choosing electors and then not following them, if you set the rules, maybe you have to follow them, maybe you don't. We don't know. Supreme Court refused to answer. And it's a good fucking question. Because if the answer is no, they don't have to follow the rules, maybe we need to change that. And I think there might be the political will to change that. Because it seems kind of sketch to me. I mean, in theory, you get to this crazy abstraction where you go, in theory, California, as a sanctuary illegal immigrant state, could choose to allow a state election count that exclusively allows only illegal immigrants to cast ballots. And the state legislature would then read and review that ballot count and then determine the number of electors based on what they got. In theory, that may be constitutional. You do not have an individual right to vote guaranteed in the Constitution for president at the popular level. So do we go there? Is there something that would stop that? We don't know. We don't know these answers. And they're really important questions. So that's just kind of getting into why this is so fucking difficult. Mostly Gluten says, I can't send get to Rumble already. We're getting there. We're almost there. Hope Johnson says, Trump should have pardoned Julian Assange before his term ended, and Edward Snowden, in my opinion. Free the deep state's political prisoners before you become one yourself. Yes. Yes. I know both of those figures are very controversial, and I'm hoping that conservatives are really, specifically law and order conservatives, are really coming around to the idea that I get that they may have violated the law, but when they expose widespread unconstitutional law violations by our government, maybe they deserve a pardon or at least a commutation of their sentence. Okay, here we go. Bandit 848 says, what about lying to the government? It depends on how you lie. And I will not give anybody any advice on lying to the government. It depends on how you lie and what you're doing. Don't lie to the FBI, though. They'll fuck you up. Alman John says, gay YouTube won't let me chat $20. Rude. Grifty, legality of dog taxidermy stuffed with tannerite. I don't know the answer to that, but I can't imagine that it would be illegal to stuff a dog's, skin with tannerite versus any other material. Now, presumably what you'd be worried about is a series of a set of heavily armed intruders forcing their way into your house, being confronted with maybe a dog that might bark at them that they would determine would be dangerous, and they would immediately shoot it, no matter the size or actual threat level of the dog. Presumably you'd be worried about maybe a series of certainly not black intruders, but black clad intruders, maybe with a sort of gang insignia. I don't know, like FAT, right? FAT on their uniforms. And they would shoot the dog right away. Yeah. Booby trapping intentionally your home is not a good idea. Very, very illegal. Spring guns and stuff like that, very unlawful, and have been for a long time. But I mean, if you just have it as a table decoration or something, I don't know. It's a tough question. Christy Harris, since they charged Trump, can we charge all the Democrat listeners in Hollywood that aired a TV commercial pleading for the electors to change in 2016? In theory, maybe. This is the dangerous problem, because of course they had the right to do that. We have the right to call them retarded, but they have the right to do that. Mostly Gluten, I'll buy 3 chainswords then. He also says, I laughed a lot harder at the fact that I couldn't send get to Rumble already than you did receiving it. Sorry. All right. That's the last YouTube chat of the day. We are going to Rumble now. We are going there. So thank you for joining me on YouTube. The link to Rumble is in the description. It's in the top of the chat. I really hope you will join us over there. We have 9,600 people watching right now on Rumble. It's cool party. You should join it. Cool party. Go ahead, pop over there. We'll see you for the rest of the show. If you don't go to Rumble tonight, you've just hang out on YouTube. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Have a good night, guys. Peace.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen,